Hi everybody, welcome to Monday. Gonna try to be topical today without being too on the nose because this is a gaming channel. I've sworn to not talk about politics on this gaming channel because there's no money in it on YouTube, and also it just upsets too many people. I want this to be a channel where people can come as long as they like video games and want to discuss video games. So if you support that initiative, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. And don't forget, Boss Fight Episode 1 is out, so watch that if you haven't seen it. This kind of ties in. It deals with the stigmatization of gamers and the idea that, coming up in Boss Fight Episode 2, that the gamer identity is inherently white, straight, cisgendered, and male. And it also ties into the... I'm still trying to fix Cthulhu's broken wing, by the way. But it also ties into, obviously, what happened over the weekend. I don't think anybody can just go on with their lives, after seeing media being tear-gassed, in some cases deliberately shot at, multiple cities on fire, or, businesses looted, things like that. I don't think we can go on without saying something about it. But there are lots of people saying something about it. I'm going to talk about the way it applies to games, because we have an ongoing culture war in video games as well. And for people who don't know much about me, because you're fairly new to this channel, I may not seem like a social justice warrior, except when I play the character. But I've been involved in a lot of social causes. I was very heavily involved when I was younger, specifically HIV/AIDS awareness and anti-violence against women, white ribbon. I always mess that up. A white ribbon campaigning after the L'École Polytechnique shootings in Canada back in the day. But it was the LGBTQ plus stuff that was just called gay rights back then. But that really taught me about why, how you get heard, and why some people get heard and why some people don't. And it actually involved a bad interaction with police. Not the same way that, black people in the US do. Ironically, in this case, it was the police siding with the guys who, they happened to be black. But what happened was, a kid in school was gay, openly so, and he got the crap kicked out of him by a bunch of guys who were calling him a Batiman while they were doing it. If you don't know what Batiman is, it's a slur against gay men, frequently heard in reggae music, or at least the reggae music of the time. Not so much anymore. But the cops showed up because the kid was beaten until he was bleeding, and didn't do anything. No charges. He was clearly beat up. He didn't throw a single punch, but the cops determined that he had provoked the attack because he rubbed his sexuality in these guys' faces. Now, today, people would go, but this was 1994, 95-ish. Yeah, I go back a ways. And that was, and I remember getting in the cop's face and saying, this is a hate crime. That's all it was. They didn't have to explain themselves. They weren't going to charge. Boys will be boys, kind of thing. And it felt so unfair. It felt so unfair. And it was my first sort of experience with the wrong kind of victim. And, at this point, kids were getting thrown out of their houses because they were gay. It's really mind-boggling how much things have changed. And it was a good lesson in not only who gets heard, who gets listened to, and how that paradigm can shift situationally and what it takes to get heard. And what I've learned, long story short, in feeling very strongly after that LGBTQ plus rights were things that were extremely important, that the things that make change is a consistent, easy to understand, achievable message that doesn't change in the telling. Evolve it, okay. But don't do one media appearance here and ask her one thing and do another media appearance here, do this outreach here, do that outreach here, and ask for 16 different things. You've got to speak, maybe not with one voice, but you've certainly got to speak with a single message. And you have to decide what that is. And it has to be baby steps. Now, what has made for effective activism has not changed. What is considered correct activism from my day has changed hugely, because now we have this idea of grassroots movements and leaderless uprising, leaderless movements, and this is considered better because they can't shut us down. They can't cut off the head and the body dies, sort of thing. They can't go after our leader because we have no leaders. Not having a particular figurehead does not mean you don't have a message that's coherent. And the reason that the gay rights movement has been so successful is that they had one message and it was simple to understand. Love is love, and then it chipped away at marriage equality, and they got it because it was just marriage equality, not everything all at once, marriage equality, right? If you look at other issues, it's all over the place because they are so complex and they affect so many people and they are so big. But the minute you don't have unity of message, people can make you into anything they want. And that happened in gaming with the Gamergate controversy. And Gamergate was a leaderless movement full of a bunch of people who were tired of being stepped on, and a particular series of events that, for whatever reason, was just a spark on dry tinder. It was far from the beginning of the whole thing. The beginning of the whole thing stretches back into things like what happened with Mass Effect 3 and the crappy ending. The revelations that video game companies were putting pressure on review sites for positive reviews, that they were having basically editorial control over reviews of their games, stuff like that. And there was just general distrust and a general feeling that the people that by rights should care about the gaming consumer didn't care. Now, this seems trivial to what's going on with Black people. It is trivial compared to what's going on with Black people in the US. Nobody denies that. Feeling disenfranchised by video games isn't gonna cause loss of life on its own, right? A bad interaction with a cop that ends up being fatal, well, there's a reason they call it fatal. But the dynamics are the same. For people who were not following along, all of a sudden it was this anger, and it was easy to dismiss. And then there was another explosion of anger. And instead of being, oh, gee, these people are angry, maybe we should pay more attention to it. No, the second explosion of anger indicated these are just angry, dangerous people, right? And if we get bogged down in the identity of things, we lose the plot. The variables you plug into the equation matter less than the equation itself, which is about who is in power, who sets the rules, who gets to pick who the good guys are and who the bad guys are, who has the messaging, who has the mouthpieces to decide how people are cast, because data doesn't persuade people. Narratives persuade people. This was a hard lesson to learn. I learned this through charity work when I was doing work for epilepsy, because there was this big statistic: 1 in 100 people will have at least one seizure episode in their life. 1 in 100 people suffer from some form of epilepsy-like condition. 1 in 100. They thought that was really powerful. Numbers do not sway people anymore. They spent a ton. They spent a ton of money. We did a ton of meetings. They printed shirts. They did all this stuff for the 1 in 100, and it didn't stick. And then they tried to do the color purple, but, cancer took purple and lots of other places took purple. That didn't work either. You know what worked? Individual stories about individual kids that people could find cute and care about. That worked. Stories work. I know it is totally counter to critical thinking. I do a critical thinking podcast called Broken Clock. I should really put the links to this stuff, but I digress. I enjoy doing active critical thinking because that exercise, combined with being an effective advocate, keeps me honest. I use the critical thinking to inform my advocacy, but I know that I cannot go out and just bludgeon people with statistics. People don't listen. People listen to stories. And that's why individual stories like George Floyd, like Ahmaud Arbery, like people like that are so powerful. The fact that there's video of George Floyd as well. Yes, it isn't the whole thing, but that's the thing. It's a snapshot. It really focuses the mind. When you see that stuff, it's immediate, it's powerful, it's a narrative that everybody understands. There's very little nuance in that. And that's why it's, again, this spark that just lit a flame that turned into a conflagration, literally and figuratively. Stories rally people. But now that you've got people's attention, you have to decide what you were going to do about it. And in gaming, it became two competing narratives. And one was just easier to digest than the other. And so it won the day. The easier to digest narrative was women are getting harassed by white man bad bullies on the internet. Simple, right? Plays into gender stereotypes, no nuance whatsoever, really simple. The other was this connect the dots, there's collusion in games journalism, and there's this instance and this instance and this instance, and it's already too long to explain. Now that doesn't mean that people there didn't have some valid points. It's totally good to care about whether or not you are getting someone's unadulterated word based on nothing but their opinion when you're using a service to decide whether you're going to buy a product. But that doesn't pull at the heartstrings like a damsel in distress narrative. And, George Floyd wasn't a damsel. And people call it damseling, and that, again, you're losing the plot. It's the distress. Humans are naturally wired to care, to feel empathy for someone who is suffering. And we may enjoy, something's intrigue on a TV show where we all know it's not real. But in the real world, if you have to make somebody do too many steps, if it seems way too cerebral, people lose interest very, very quickly. And so with gaming, the pro-Gamergate faction got painted as bad guys. The anti-Gamergate faction got painted as good guys, and that didn't budge. Because at that point, Gamergate really didn't have a message. Subsequent it seemed trivial because it was about video games, when it really wasn't. It was about identity and about who matters and who gets to speak. And here we are today, right? We've got the same thing. We've got a really powerful tableau, right, with the George Floyd story. Now what? Because we already have various operators going out of their way to make the protesters look bad. And it's easy to say that shouldn't matter. We understand why they're angry, but it matters. And a lot of people tried to say this in ways that got a lot of people upset because, of comments like, white liberal Hillary Clinton, suburban Hillary Clinton voters and stuff like that, or I forget what the exact description was. But you put a picture in someone's mind that made them go, well, wait a minute. That's my mother. That's my sister. They feel attacked, right? It was badly argued. But the point in a strategy meeting was actually a valid one. And the reason I say in a strategy meeting is if you've ever been in a strategy meeting, 3/4 of that meeting is not for public consumption because it is Machiavellian shit, okay? Maybe almost Nietzschean shit. But that is the people that you gotta convince. The people who are going about their lives who really don't have that many problems. If you can convince them, because they don't have that many real problems, well, they don't have things that'll get in the way of the thing you need their help with. Now, when people like that see unpleasantness, they shut it out. It's just, nope, because their lives are easy, right? They want to keep their lives easy. Who wouldn't? And it's the same thing that happens whenever something becomes a huge internet fight. It's the same thing that happens when people see rioting. It's just a really easy moral heuristic to go, no, I don't support violence. That's what we've all been taught, right? I don't support violence. That's my Karen voice. I don't like the term Karen, but I'm using it because everybody's using it. And I apologize to people named Karen. But I actually came up with the term on Broken Clock. I'm calling them AMYS now. After that woman in Central Park, yada, yada, yada. Karens will, demand to speak to the manager. But AMYS are a step more evil. They will not just, I want to speak to the manager. They will, I'm going to tell them an African-American male is harassing me. They're going to threaten you with the action, which is different from Karens who just demand to speak to the manager, right? Action. AMYS threaten you with the action because the real power, the moment that they have absolute power is that if you're not sure they're going to do it or not. As soon as they do it, that was her mistake. As soon as they do it, they become the bad guy. She should have just took her dog and left at that point. But it's that threat. I'm going to ruin you. And it's amazing how many suburban soccer moms have that in them, because that's the language of toxic femininity. And yes, it is real. Women don't do anything overtly because, oh no, that's mean. They do stuff like that. I'm going to ruin you. You do what I want or I'll do it. Problem is, the minute you do it, it's a direct act and your entire house of cards falls. But because people, these AMYs, don't tend to act directly, they are freaking dangerous. And they are the ones that any social movement has to persuade. And we're in a paradigm right now where the AMYs don't like gamers because, ew. You know what I'm saying? Ew. Like Amy, like the Sonic the Hedgehog character. Not that kind of Amy. But kinda. I mean, Amy's I'm better than you in everything in some interpretations, right? But they think gamers are beneath them. In a different way, then they think, you know, black people are beneath them, but they still think they're beneath them. Ew. There's an ew response. And those disgust triggers are powerful psychologically. And so how do you keep the AMYS happy? How do you persuade the AMYS, right? Well, by making everything nice, right? There's a reason I named the villain team Nice in Boss Fight, because nice is a freaking weapon in girl world that moves into women world. The reason the gay rights movement did so well is they started doing comedies. It was Will and Grace. It was Jack on Will and Grace. And oh, love is love. Love is good, right? Love. You know, it wasn't the Stonewall riots. Oh, God, they didn't know about that. No, that would be a totally different thing. Then it's, oh, penises are scary, right? Well, that just got demonetized. I said a biological word. But the minute something becomes not nice, you lose the AMYS. Karens can kind of understand not nice. If you get to the manager before Karen does, she kind of hates you, but she respects you. AMYS are scary because Becky's will complain about it, but an Amy will fuck you up. And this is the issue. This is what Van Jones was trying to say in his perhaps not well worded emotional outburst on CNN on, I guess it was Friday night. But unfortunately, everybody hates the AMYS. Everybody has to deal with the AMYS if you want to get anything done. And the gay rights movement successfully converted the AMYS. Now, it's much harder for other groups, especially Black civil rights and this police issue, because it is an inherently violent issue. But you can still do it, right? The idea, you have to play to that leveraging of victimhood that the AMYS use. And that's what the anti-Gamergate side did really well, and the pro-Gamergate side did terribly. You have to connect to someone on the paradigm of victimhood. And then you have to have a really clear ask. But your ask can't violate the victimhood. And it's such an emotional thing, which is why I enjoy critical thinking, because it's like a cleansing balm after this, okay? The minute you start going, I want that person fired, you have lost the Amy. You have lost the Amy, because now you're making something bad happen to someone. Now you're being a Karen, and Amy's and Karens don't get along because they're fighting for the same power and their tactics aren't the same. Because the Amy's of the world will accuse someone of something terrible. Oh, but I don't want them to lose their job. I don't want anything to happen to them. You know, I'm just telling my story. Bull. You don't come forward with that unless you want something to happen. But it violates girl code to be overt in what you want. You notice the minute Tara Reid said Joe Biden should be fired, the story disappeared. Because every liberal went, whoa, the inner Amy came out in the progressive movement go, no, he's the guy that's going to beat Trump. Like, we can't get rid of him. So, like, we can take pot shots at him and say he's bad. But no. Then people have to do something. The nice thing about the gay rights movement is all they asked was that people care. They didn't have to do anything. They just had to watch their Will and Grace and their Spin City and their Ellen and just feel good, right? And gradually things worked for the courts and gradually public opinion changed. That's the problem with what's going on right now and what was going on with the Gamergate stuff is they had a laundry list of changes they wanted made. And one person, and I've been talking to a lot of people about this, one person will tell you, it must be this now, we must end the war on drugs. Then somebody else will say, we must end police unions now. Somebody else says, we have to put money funding communities now. The funding community ones is actually a pro-Amy strategy because it's nice, right? Nobody loses their job. Nothing bad happens to anybody. We can just sing Kumbaya and hand out cookies at a bake sale in a community, right? Now, if you can push that into legislation, because, white suburban women, white college-educated suburban women, the AMYS of the world, are the ones that determine elections a lot of the time. Because everybody else's vote is locked in. They're persuadable. So that one you'll get through. The idea that police budgets should be, defund the police, a big thing. The idea that police budgets should be tied to a lack of excessive force instances in a given year. AMYS love that stuff because they're not doing anything bad. They're just setting healthy boundaries. And so if something bad happens, it's your own damn fault. It's not me. This is the sort of psychology that works. This is what the anti-Gamergate side did, because it was the whole call it out. Well, calling it out is easy, right? And then if they bombard you with but, wait, there's another side. Oh, they're harassing. This just proves the rightness of what you did. So the male AMYs, the guys, I don't have a name for male AMYs. I'll have to think of one. Something like Amy. But they get to be kind of an asshole and still insist, oh no, I'm just helping the little lady over there. Which the AMYs secretly hate, but they're not going to say anything because, hey, they're manipulating these dudes into doing what they want through a victim narrative, right? This is all twisted shit. But it works. It's the way these things work. And I wish people would start listening to people who talk about this stuff, because unfortunately, these reprehensible personality types are the ones that actually help you get things done. They actually don't care very much about your issue and they say nasty things behind your back, but they provide you with the people power to actually make lasting change. And people could be really pissed off at me right now, but every time people have not listened to me or someone like me regarding the AMYs of the world and the success of your project, does Colin Kaepernick have a team? No, because AMYs don't care about football. And AMYs, oh God, the idea that you would do something in front of everybody instead of just one black guy with a video camera, right? There's no subterfuge in what Colin Kaepernick did. No. The AMYs don't like that at all, right? Too overt. Karens might be down with that. Not AMYs. The thing about Becky's is Becky's do nothing. AMYs do stuff. Because AMYs are seething cauldrons of rage that just want an excuse to go off on someone. And that's why they're powerful. They're the ones that'll show up on town halls. They're the ones that will encourage their kids to do school projects. They are the ones who will get off their butts for totally evil reasons. But they'll do it. And any successful social movement appeals to that person. The Women's March blew it because they didn't have an ask. But they were doing real well rallying the AMYs of the world. I mean, their ask was get rid of Donald Trump. And then it sort of imploded because the AMYs in the group, it was run by AMYs. You can't be an AMY and successfully appeal to AMYs. Because they'll see their own kind and they'll take you out. And that's what happened to the Women's March organizers. But it's a very real thing. There is a political class. There is a political protest class. And they get stuff done. And you have to learn how to work with this stuff. Because I'm tired of this stuff. I know people keep saying, I'm tired. And I'm way less tired than people directly affected by this stuff. I mean, I'm directly affected in a way, but you know what I mean. I want to see change. I want something to get done this time. I'm tired of sitting here feeling helpless. And so I'm sure I'll take some crap from this. But this is real talk. And this is what it takes. And this is what the gay rights movement did, or the LGBTQ plus movement did. That other social movements have not managed. Because the other thing with AMYs is you need your message to be super, super, super simple. So you got to pick something. And it's not somebody loses their job. You will lose an Amy. And I get it, okay? I get why people want that. And like I said, you'll get short-term gains with the Karens on that one. The Karens get that language. But Karens are too busy fighting their own fights to help you with yours. The AMYS of the world don't respond to, I want that person fired, because they've got a ton of skeletons in their closet and they know that if anybody found out what they were doing, they'd be fired. Look at Amy Cooper, right? So that's a sore point. But like I said, there are some things that can be done. You got to find the language to do it though. You know, it's not tear down language. It's build up language. And that doesn't mean that AMYs don't love to tear things down. That's what they exist to do. But they don't have that self-image. And the minute you're so on the nose about wanting someone removed, about wanting someone gone, it's a little too much of a mirror into the motivation of an AMY. And they will shut down on you because they refuse to see it. They're the victim, remember? They're not the aggressor. And so, this is any issue. This is true of anything you want to get done. You have to appeal to that group. It's not fun. It's not pretty. It's certainly messy as shit. But it's real. All right, everybody. Hope you like that. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK for real talk. And actually, the patrons sort of inspired this because while everything was going to hell on the weekend, we did the boss fight party. And it was like, at one point, almost 30 people in a Zoom chat, a Zoom meeting. And we were all talking, we were all showing off our toys. And it got really serious. Like, we talked politics, we talked religion, we talked all that stuff. But we were all just people. And nothing got contentious. And everybody kind of knew, you cool, me cool. And I just love to hear different perspectives on things. It's so interesting when people can express themselves well enough to help me see another take on something. It's really cool. And it was like this, like a high school class size of groups of people doing that and showing off toys and talking about their favorite video games. And then it ended with a guy asking for recommendations on what video games his mom could play because his mom wants to get into gaming now, which I thought was really cool. Okay, everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll see how this week goes. Hang in there, everybody.